Hey, what is up guys? MKBHD here. So a little while ago on Twitter, I started a challenge with myself to use an iPad as my only portable computer. So for about the past 2 weeks, that's what I've been doing. So this has been fascinating with the iPad. You know, it's not very often that a software update has such a huge effect on a relatively new piece of tech. You know, sometimes they'll boost the camera quality a little bit, or it'll smooth out some bugs or give a little performance boost here and there. But iPadOS, since it's come out in this public beta form, has really transformed the iPad Pro in a bunch of ways. Should it have been this way in the first place? Probably. But, you know, here we are. So originally, I thought I would want to do this laptop replacement challenge with the bigger 13-inch iPad Pro, since it's closer to the size of the laptop that I was already using. But when I installed that early iPadOS, I put it on my 11-inch iPad Pro, thinking I would just take it back off. But then I really liked it, and I kind of felt it was way more portable and easy to use and type on, and I got really into it. So now, this is my iPad Pro of choice. It's the 11-inch cellular iPad Pro, space gray, half a terabyte of storage, and the iPadOS 13 public beta. So basically, the premise behind all of this is your ability to use an iPad as your primary mobile computer will depend on, of course, exactly what you're doing on your computer when you're mobile. So what do I need it to do? Well, over the past couple weeks, we've been shooting season 1 of Retro Tech, which is super exciting. You guys probably saw the pilot episode with the Game Boy. We're shooting season 1, so in between shooting and traveling, my computing needs are actually relatively simple. I need to read emails and email people back, download and sign attachments, do social media, that's pretty normal, photo editing, watching videos, publishing videos, and listening to music. And that's about it. You know, when I actually come back into the studio for work, I work on the desktop on the iMac Pro on a real computer. But anytime I leave, I don't take any laptop with me. Anytime I'm home, I resist the urge to use any desktop. I'm all iPad Pro all the time. So of course, this has had its pros and its cons. That's what this video is about. And I've been taking my notes as this goes along. So these are those. The main one, the one that dictates it all, is the whole reason I wanted to try this in the first place. The iPad Pro is just more fun to use. Like I said this in the full review, and it's true, especially the smaller one. I'm super likely to take it out of my bag and just use it when I can, even over my phone in the back of an Uber for flipping through emails or just web browsing. Just the thinness, the metal of the form factor, the light balanced weight, the 120 hertz display. It's just fun. We've been over this. By the way, the iOS Gmail app has this profile switcher that's just by swiping up or down on the profile picture. Google, please, the Android version needs this too. Just putting that out there. But anyway, yeah, it's fun to use, but the tough part about using an iPad all the time is the ergonomics for sure. So I'll carry it with no case, no skin, and for me, no keyboard folio or anything, just the naked iPad Pro. And I feel like that's partially because I guess I'm stubborn about cases. I don't really think there are any good cases or keyboards that I like using for the iPad, but I also just want to appreciate the impressive design of this thing, and covering it up with a cheap rubber feeling case just feels wrong. Maybe it's just me. But of course, a laptop has the obvious ergonomic advantage of a hinge, if it's a good one, right? So the keyboard at one angle and the screen at another. Now with the iPad, the 3 main positions I found myself using the iPad were holding it up with 2 hands, propping it with one hand and poking with the other, or lying it flat on a table or in my lap just for typing. So luckily it's lightweight, so holding it up is actually pretty easy to do for a long time. That was the most common position I found. Then the propped position when you're resting it with one hand and poking with the other was more common with sometimes gaming or just like lazy browsing and scrolling. And then with the emailing or writing a bunch for making videos and things like that, anything that involves a keyboard for a longer period of time, I'll put it down on my lap or a table and type away. This is easily the worst ergonomic position for the iPad, and that's when I miss the laptop the most. Like typing over long periods on an iPad screen with both sizes, no matter how you do it, is not anything quite like typing on a real keyboard, and I've gotten used to it for brief bursts, but that's the downside. I've had Apple's keyboard folio cases for the iPad for a while, and you can, you know, sort of prop it up like a laptop with the magnets and then type on a silicon keyboard, and there's usually a lot of wobble, but I don't know, I'm just not a big fan of that, so I always just default to taking it off, naked iPad, and just typing on glass. Oh, and of course, iPadOS now has that pinch down smaller keyboard, so you can swipe type on the side or drag that thing anywhere you want if things are in a pinch. Pinch. I'm also way more likely to game on the iPad Pro than a MacBook Pro. That's just facts. But here's another downside though. There's a couple dongles needed to sort of match the laptop. Some extra things you carry with it. So I keep the naked iPad in the laptop sleeve in this backpack. So it's just sort of loose in there, but it's fine. It uses the same USB-C charger as the laptop would, but also in the same sleeve, I can toss an Apple Pencil, a flash drive, and an SD card reader, which sounds kind of fine, but then the laptop just kind of has a little extra loose stuff hanging around in it. Not a big deal, I guess. Also, if anyone else wants to take on this challenge, I highly recommend like a battery bank like this one. So I've linked this below and other what's in my bag stuff in the past, but it's 20,000 milliamp hours. It's by Anker. It's got fast charging, USB-C. Something like this will back up the iPad multiple times over. Now the iPad does have A+ battery life. Like it's excellent, even on this LTE version. It won't die in a full day of use. But if I ever get low, I'll just toss it in my backpack while plugged into the battery. And then when I take it out, it's full again. So I'll link all the stuff I'm talking about below the like button, of course. But the biggest workflow difference I found that it's enabled, but that works better now that the Files app is improved, is photo editing. So now I can go from Canon EOS R to the SD card, then from the SD card to the SD card reader, so plugging that into the iPad. Then I can use the new and improved Files app to go through the files tree of the SD card to pick the exact raw file that I want, import that one file or multiple if I want, then head over to Lightroom or really whatever editor of choice supports RAW, import the raw image, and then start editing, which is usually awesome with the Apple Pencil. This is something I've had a lot of fun with. Of course, connecting via USB Type-C directly to a camera is an even better workflow for certain cameras, so that's awesome. But yeah, overall, the iPad makes a fantastic mobile image editor and just as good as a trackpad. So in summary, using an iPad as your only mobile computer has its ups and downs in 2019. So I found the good parts were the awesome performance, the great battery life, and just the fun form factor. We already know the iPad was fun to use. Plus, having LTE everywhere was a nice bonus. The desktop class browser is excellent. The desktop feeling Files app is a great improvement, and there's a download manager in Safari that also ties that all together beautifully. And then editing photos with the Apple Pencil is dope. And then the pain points, the downsides, were mostly typing and ergonomics. So anytime you need to reply to an email with a lot of text or just a lot of typing or writing on this glass screen, or if you don't like the keyboard case that has the keyboard built in, it's just not as good. And then there is a solid learning curve to all the new multitasking gestures in iPadOS. I went over all of them in this video, if you want to check it out. And some of them are pretty useful, but there are so many extra things that I didn't really use most of them. And in my opinion, there still isn't really a great, solid, non-wobbling keyboard case for the iPad Pro, sadly. And then also something I never really did is video editing. So I've stopped, like I said, I stopped video editing on the go because red footage is really heavy. Laptops can barely keep up, so I just don't do that. I bring it to the desktop. But if you don't shoot red, or if you have 1080p footage or something like that, and you have simple video editing to do, it's possible. There are solutions. There's Adobe Premiere Rush. There's LumaFusion. There's iMovie. And other YouTubers much braver than me have taken the dive and messed with video editing on the iPad Pro. So I'll leave a TLD video, for example, linked below for that. I'm not that guy, but if you are that guy, you can also do video editing. So iPad Pro with iPadOS beta feels the closest to not a computer replacement, but a computer alternative more than anything else I've used lately. With all that being said, I am still really excited for the new rumored 16-inch MacBook Pro. Like, a lot of this really just comes down to what you really enjoy using. So I happen to love using the iPad Pro, so I wanted to see what it would be like using it all the time. But if you have a laptop that you really love using, then that changes all of that. Who knows, maybe with Johnny Ive not designing Apple products anymore, we'll get these crazy, radical new Apple laptop designs in the next year or two. I don't even really know. Fingers crossed we'll see some good stuff, hopefully worthy of the Pro in the name, but only time will tell. We'll see. Until the next one, thanks for watching. Catch you guys later. Peace.